During the meeting, it is April, 12th already. My gosh, about a third of the year has gone by. So, fortunately, I was blessed a couple of days ago to see a link that Matt Clausen had shared on our team training blog about this brilliant video with a guy named Steven Sinek, who I'd not heard of before, but who obviously I'm going to read his books because what he's talking about is just brilliantly good. And what is his whole concept here is to start with why. And he's a leadership development trainer for major corporations, apparently a very successful guy in that arena. And the key point on this 18-minute video is that people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And so if you want to watch that 18-minute video and you don't have the link, it was in the emails I sent out this morning about this training. But if you're watching this later and you don't have that email, if you just Google Simon Sinek, it's S-I-M-O-N, first name, last name S-I-N-E-K, Google his name with the words great leaders, you will find this 18-minute video that he did for a TED Talk. And if you don't know about TED Talks, that's worth learning about as well. But you'll find this phenomenal 18-minute video. I'd recommend you watch that and take notes. I spent it's an 18-minute video. I must have spent 2 hours with it last night just making sure I understood and was getting everything down. So this is really, really solid stuff for those who want to be serious about success in life, not just in business, but in life in general. So I highly recommend Simon's talk, and although I don't have his book yet, I'm definitely getting it. You might want to do that as well. So what he starts off asking is what sets inspiring leaders and inspiring organizations apart from everybody else? How do you explain it when others are able to achieve things that defy all assumptions, things that are way beyond what you'd expect? He uses examples like the Wright brothers. Others were trying to invent flying machines, and others were better funded and had better ability to bring in the best minds in the country, but the Wright brothers are the ones who did it. Why? Why was Martin Luther King as successful as he was in articulating an idea when there were plenty of others who were in exactly the same situation as him, who were also good communicators, who weren't as effective? What was the difference? And Apple is a great example. Why is Apple always more innovative than all other computer companies? They all have access to the same resources, the same consultants, the same everything, but Apple's always the innovator. Why? So he says that there's a pattern here. All of the great and inspiring leaders and organizations in the world, like Apple, like Martin Luther King, like the Wright brothers, they all think, act, and communicate in exactly the same way. And it's a complete opposite of everyone else. It's a pattern that he calls the golden circle, which is why, how, and what. And it looks like this. If you think of a target, the why is the small bullseye in the middle, how is the next ring out, and then what is the outer ring? So by starting with why and the inside and working out, Simon Sinek says the great organizations and inspiring leaders just are able to touch people in a different way because most everybody else starts with the outside and works in. So every single person in the organization knows what they do, right? 100%. Obviously, if you show up for work in the morning, you know what you're doing, at least what's right in front of you. Some companies and people know how they do it. They know what their unique selling proposition is. They know what their proprietary process or their technology is, that sort of thing. But he says that very few people or organizations know why they do what they do. So the why, how, and what are the important aspects of what he's talking about here. And making a profit or earning money, if it's a corporation, make a profit. If it's a person earning money, those are not whys. Those are results of a powerful why. So your why is your purpose, your cause, or your belief. Part of your personal why obviously is going to be to provide for your family and that sort of thing. But the way you're going to do that, the money that's going to come from that is not going to come from that why. Nobody's going to buy into you making money. You have to have a bigger purpose than that. And so, when you think in terms of an organization, why does your organization exist? What purpose does it serve that causes people to want to do business with you? And why do you personally get up in the morning, and why should anyone care? These are great questions that he poses. So he observed that most people, most companies think, act, and communicate from the outside to the inside. They start with what and then talk about how, which might be features and benefits of a product or service, and they rarely get to why. But he said inspired leaders and organizations, regardless of their size and regardless of their industry, all think, act, and communicate from the inside to the outside, from why to then how to then what. And that he calls that the golden circle. So they all start with why. So that's a really important takeaway from this. If you will begin with why, what is the purpose? Why are people going to part with their hard-earned money to do business with you? In other words, what's in it for them? So that's the purpose that people will buy into. And he goes at talks about Apple at great length, and it's very interesting. And I just, I'm only scratching the surface here, so you definitely want to watch that video. But he said that the thinking in Apple goes like this, which is different. I mean, when you think of Apple, before I even get into this, when you think of Apple, you don't just think of computers. They're a computer company, of course, but they're also a phone company, aren't they? And they're a tablet company, and they're a music company because you have your iPod, and they're a TV company because you have Apple TV now, which we use all the time. And you're very comfortable buying all these different products from Apple, right? I mean, if you think of a phone, you know that the iPhones are great, the iPads are great. You don't question why would you buy that from Apple. But what about Dell? If Dell made a phone, would you buy it? They're a great computer company, just like Apple. But you think of them as a computer company, not as a technology company, don't you? And so the reason why is very interesting. It's because Apple has a different way of approaching communication. They talk about why first, and their whys basically revolves around the statement that we believe in challenging the status quo and thinking differently. How do we do that? We do that by making products that are beautifully designed, simple to use, and user-friendly. So they're not talking about making computers. And then if you're in the market for a computer, say, we also happen to make computers. You want to buy one? So, but people buy into the why. And if you know anybody who's an Apple user, you know what I'm talking about. I mean, there's a fanatic loyalty. It works. I'm personally a Windows guy, but I'm not an evangelist for Windows. I don't go and talk to people about how great Windows is and try to convince them to switch to Windows, as all my Apple friend users do. In the back of my mind, I really do believe that Macs are better. I'm just used to what I'm doing. But why do I believe that Macs are better? Because all the people that use them are evangelists for Apple. And because Apple's attracted customers who believe what they believe. And that's the key to this thing, guys. We don't need to do business with everybody who needs what we have. We want to attract people who believe what we believe. And that's part of what Simon was talking about here, attracting customers who believe what you believe. That's what Apple does. And also in our particular situation, attracting partners who believe what we believe. So the first thing we need to be clear on is what we believe, and we need to be clear on how to communicate that. So Apple's attracted customers who believe what they believe and who therefore are extremely loyal to the point of being evangelists for all those Apple products. They're not Mac users, they're Apple users, right? And so if Apple makes a phone, they buy it. If Apple makes an iPod, they buy it. If it's an iPad, they buy it. Because they're Apple customers, they're not Mac users. So Sinek goes on to discuss the neuroscience of why we respond to this and why the why really is so much more important than the what. You should definitely watch that 18-minute video and take notes. But for our purposes here, you just need to know this. Rational and analytical thought takes place in the neocortex. That's the newest part of the brain in terms of human evolution. But all feelings like trust, loyalty, all decision-making, as well as feelings, take place in the limbic brain, which has no capacity for language. That's really important, guys. So when we communicate from the outside to the inside, from what to how, and then maybe to why, people can understand all the features and benefits, but it doesn't drive behavior because we're dealing with the neocortex, all right? So on the other hand, if we think, act, and communicate from the outside to the inside, starting with why, and then we're speaking directly to that part of the brain that controls behavior. Have you ever heard the idea that people buy on emotion and justify on logic? If you've been around sales at all, you've heard that many times. Now you know why it's true. And more importantly, you know how to take advantage of that reality. So the key for us is really that success leaves clues. And what Simon Sinek has done is observed the clues the common clues of all these successful organizations and individuals. So if he's right about every inspiring leader and organization starting with why, then do you think it would be a good idea to do that? Yeah, right? So with Freedom Equity Group, we're on a crusade to help Americans retire with dignity and to educate them about the new modern kind of life insurance you don't have to die to use. So it's important to get deep into the why of that so you can communicate it clearly. You need to know that 62% of all personal bankruptcies are caused by medical events, and that we can solve all of that simply by switching people's insurance from the old-fashioned kind to the new kind. Can you get excited about being part of saving American families from financial catastrophe? I can. And so if you can't, then you want to think about whether this is where you want to be or not. But if you can, then you want to communicate that when you're talking to people. If your why is just to make money, this won't work very well for you, because you'll feel like you're using people rather than serving them, and they'll sense that feeling. But if, what I love is what Rudy says, Rudy Heald, for those of you who may not have met him yet. Rudy is a great leader here in Team Synergy, and what he does is he visualizes himself walking into the recovery room after one of his clients has had a serious health event with a big fat check for $100,000 to help with the recovery process. Stop for a moment right now and think about that. See yourself walking into the recovery room of some friend or who's a client, and instead of just giving them a get well card or bringing them flowers, you're bringing them a check for $100,000. What kind of difference would that make for them at that point in their life? That's what we're doing here, guys. This is important work, and it's work you can be proud of. It's not just a business worthy of your energy because of the money you can make. This is a cause worthy of your passion if you can see it that way. So here's the action steps for today. Get excited about Freedom Equity Group's mission. Now get excited about that. If you're not, then figure out how you can get excited about it. If you can't, then probably ought to do something else. And then secondly, get clear on your own why, your personal mission, and how will that positively impact your clients and your FEG teammates and partners on your team. So do that today. It's easy to get on a call and think, yeah, that's a great idea, and then go out and clean the garage and forget all about it. Take action before you leave this call. When we hang up here today, take some action. Block off time to do this. Do something to take action to get closer to your why, and to be able to learn how to communicate that to your potential clients and partners. We'll be talking about this a lot because this makes sense. This is kind of puts a bow on something I've always understood, but never really kind of understood how it all fit together. But this is really important stuff, guys. It will make a very big difference both for you and for your clients. So the most important thing is that you need to overcome inactivity. If you have any fear or uncertainty or doubt, action will cure that. Have 10 conversations before next Friday about living benefits with no attachment to the outcome. Help people replace those old-fashioned policies. Make some money. Build for the next event. Next event is Seattle. I'll be there. Mike Grigsby will be there. I think Laura Knight's going to be there. Of course, Rick Walsh and Petro will be there. This is going to be a big deal in Seattle. It starts Friday at about 2 in the afternoon. You can check the schedule at the company. But if you're anywhere near Seattle, be there yourself. And also, this is really important. If you know anybody in the state of Washington or in Portland, I would definitely call them this weekend and invite them to take a look at our opportunity and watch the intro video. Because if they're interested, then wouldn't it be sad if you didn't find that out until a week after they could have gone to this phenomenal training event up in Seattle this coming weekend? So take some time to think about who you know up in Seattle and just connect them to the information so they can decide if this might be something that makes sense for them or not. And even if it's not, they might become a customer. So make those calls to anybody you know in the state of Washington or Seattle, and then build your story. You need to build your story, build your team, make some money. That's the best recruiting tool you can have, is to earn money, and make a difference. And the most important thing is to see yourself making a difference, because that will cause you to stay the course. And you've just got to engage and just do it. But right now, today, before we leave this call, take action. If you're listening to this on a recording later, right now, before you do anything else, take some action about what are you going to do to help clarify your own personal why, and how are you going to learn to be more effective at communicating both the company's why and your why to your clients and potential partners. So I'm going to turn off the recording now and open it up for any questions.